Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and in this video, I'm going to let you look inside my pantries. I said pantries. Get your mind out of the gutter. Now before we get started, I want to proactively address a couple of things you might wind up thinking during the course of this video. First is, OMG, nobody needs that much food, or nobody needs that many keto ingredients, or what an incredible mess you have there, Steve. I expected more from you. Well, you know what? You would be right with all three of those things, so you don't need to leave me that comment. So yes, we do have a lot of food. Part of that is because we have both keto people, me, and non-keto people, the other four members of the family, in this house. As a result, we kind of wind up double dipping on a lot of different food items, a keto version and a non-keto version. Second, because we're Costco members, you wind up getting everything in bulk and you just sort of look like a prepper. And third, I'm a foodie. I love to cook. I love to experiment. I love food science. And when you couple that with having a YouTube channel where you're cooking, you buy a lot of stuff. I mean, I buy a lot of the exact same ingredient, but from different companies, just to compare them and see which one is better. So there's a lot of that going on here. Finally, in terms of the messiness that you're going to see, that is actually a little bit intentional. Part of it's unintentional. It's just my family doesn't care that much about organization and things. But I also wanted to let things get a little bit messy. That way I can do a video on my other channel, Lean Body Mind, to show how you can create a more effective and decluttered work environment. So that video will come, I don't know, in another month or so on Lean Body Mind. One final thing before we get rolling, this is not a single standalone end-all be-all video. I expect that I'm probably going to make one of these per month for the next couple of months as we work our way through the different pantries and different cooking styles. I hope also to maybe do a collaboration video with one of my fellow or multiple fellow keto creators. But for starters, we're going to take a look at the original pantry right here. So this is the original pantry. I installed these roll-out drawers a number of years ago. Great decision. And what you're going to see here is sort of a theme across all of the pantries, which is, first, I don't get a whole lot of space. Second, there's not a whole lot of organization when it comes to my family's shelves. So starting at the top, I've got some things like extracts, some salt, some pepper. Oh, what else is back here? I think we got some yeast. We've got some various sweeteners. Next shelf, largely family shelf, kind of carby. Got a few hot sauces and stuff in the back. Again, mostly a family shelf, as you can tell by the mess, but the only thing here that's mine is green tea. This shelf tends to be nuts, snack mixes, so, you know, some of those nuts are mine, those are keto. And then we got some more nuts and some candy and a couple of sugar-free syrups, as well as cat food. On the other side, on the top shelf, pasta, rice, that's the family. Crackers and nut butters. I got my keto crackers here, got a few different nut butters, some allulose syrup. Then we've got a number of cooking oils and vinegars and sauces. This, definitely must have, apple cider vinegar, avocado cooking spray, olive oil cooking spray. Then we have some random baking ingredients, including xanthan gum, of course. And lastly, a bunch of breadcrumbs and other sort of baking stuff. What a mess. In terms of the original pantry, there's not a lot in what I would consider sort of must-have keto staples. The one that I wouldn't want to be without, though, is pork rind panko. I also call this pig flour. What I do is I process pork rinds in a food processor until it's powder. This stuff can be used as a breading. I also use it in a couple of recipes. My carnivore pancakes, carnivore pancakes. They're not truly carnivore, but they're fairly close. And my carnivore tortilla recipe. The other item I consider fairly close to being a must-have in a keto pantry is xanthan gum. You need some sort of thickener that's not like corn-based or starchy or real heavily carby, and xanthan gum fits that bill. Now there are some other thickeners, and I'll be doing a video in the future on those, comparing them with xanthan gum and deciding which one I think is the best. But it seems like a lot of keto recipes out there require xanthan gum, so I'm going to put this into the bucket of should probably be in your keto pantry. And with that, let's move on to pantry number 2. Next, right between the kitchen and the living room, is what used to be a media closet. So it's where I kept all my DVDs and CDs and stuff. Now, it's a pantry. Once again, the majority of this belongs to the rest of my family. There's a lot of keto no-goes in here. I get some space up on the top shelf. There's my collection of Chalk Zero syrups, some collagens, and just a mess of different ingredients. Moving on down, not mine very much. We got a little bit there, got a little coconut cream. Once we work our way down to the second shelf from the bottom, this is really all my baking stuff. Well, at least the baking stuff that's not in the downstairs pantry. This will be the shelf that I take you through and talk about the sort of must-haves, the nice-to-haves or specialty ingredients, and some of the things that I wish I hadn't purchased. Down on the bottom, sort of a catch-all here, we've got some chips, got some pork rinds, got some oils, some vinegar, big tub of bacon fat. We've got some coconut oil there, and then here's one I'm really looking forward to using, some Wagyu tallow. So we'll come back in a couple of minutes and take a look at some of the keto baking supplies. I'll talk about the ones that I think you ought to have, at least the ones I think I ought to have, as well as the ones that maybe not so much. But first, we're going to check out the food storage area down in the basement, the Costco prepper zone of sorts. Finally, we have the storage area down in my basement. A lot of bulk food type items here. A lot of the keto products that gets mailed to me. In terms of regretful purchases, this is one right here. I was told that this would make a good substitute for beans in a keto chili. Not so much in my experience. Got some various keto sauces, nut butters, Primal Kitchen, etc. More apple cider vinegar, more Chalk Zero syrups, a lot of sweeteners. We'll talk about that in a subsequent video. And various flours, mixes, etc. And then down in the bottom, some protein powder, more Chalk Zero stuff, more syrups. Over here, this is largely the Costco sort of shelf. So all bulk food items sort of overflow from the upstairs pantry, including various oils, sauces, spices, etc. One of the pantry essentials that I would not want to be without is not even a food item or an ingredient. It's these stackable storage containers from OXO. These things are really nice. I love them. If you are doing keto baking, there are a handful of flours that I feel are important to have in your arsenal. First off, almond flour. Assuming you don't have a nut allergy, almond flour is used in very many keto baking recipes. A popular alternative to almond flour is coconut flour, but be aware that you don't need to use nearly as much by volume. About a third as much as you would use for almond flour. It is very water absorbent. The third flour that I consider a must-have is lupini flour, or lupin flour, depending on the brand you buy. I've purchased a number of them, and I can say, honestly, my favorite is Aviate. This stuff has the best taste, it doesn't have that sort of earthy taste, and the carb profile is fantastic. So, flour number 3, lupin or lupini flour. The next group of flours that I'm going to cover fall into that category of maybe nice to have. A lot depends on if you see a recipe that requires one of these and you know that you're going to be making it a lot, then I might consider some of these. First up is cashew flour. I do like the taste and the texture of this, but it probably leans a little bit more towards low carb than keto because it is 4 grams of net carbs in 2 tablespoons. Then we have hazelnut flour and pecan flour. These are good if you're making more of a hearty type of a chaffle, like a sandwich bread type of a chaffle. I would probably go with pecan flour. Lastly, we have 2 that I have not really used all that much. In fact, I haven't used the sunflower seed flour yet at all, so I can't opine on that. I know I bought it quite a while ago and I still haven't opened it, so maybe that tells you something about the lack of necessity for having this in your pantry. Sesame flour, I've used only once, and frankly, I can't remember what I used it for. So again, it makes me kind of wonder if it's that necessary for your pantry. The final category for flours is those that I probably wouldn't buy if I could go back and do it all over again. The first is tiger nut flour, and the reason I bought this was because I saw that it was an ingredient in Birch Bender's keto pancake mix. I think it was the keto, might have been the paleo. Anyhow, I got it. It's got an interesting flavor. I've added it to some chaffles, and it creates a flavor that almost reminds me of Pringles potato chips. In terms of carb count though, very carby, wouldn't buy it again. Then I have carbulose. So carbulose is a little different than Carb Quick. Think of carbulose as sort of a flour substitute, like all-purpose flour, whereas Carb Quick is more like, Bisquick. People who practice a strict keto, a clean keto, whatever you want to call it, kind of frown upon carbulose. And I think about the only place I use it is when my wife is making zucchini pancakes. I ever use this instead of Bisquick. The final flour that I kind of regret purchasing is this King Arthur wheat flour blend. It's supposed to be a 1-for-1 substitute for flour, and I used it and it was very, very dense. I basically wound up getting bricks when I was trying to make some buns. Additionally, not cheap. Next up is whey protein isolate. Some people within the keto community frown upon this. I'm not one of those people. I think it works great in a breading, and it can add an additional texture that's sort of like flour when added into baked goods. So for me at least, I'm going to put this on the must-have in the pantry category. Next we have psyllium husk, both whole psyllium husk and powder. These both add texture to baked goods in slightly different ways. The powder creates more of a chew, and in fact, if used too much, kind of a gumminess. But used properly, it can create a little bit of a gluten-type chew. Whole husk adds some additional texture. But do you need both? Well, I did a video on that, which I will link to right up here. For me, I'm going to say yes to both of these. Next is oat fiber. This shows up in a number of different bread recipes, I think even some cracker recipes. It adds an additional heartiness to whatever you're making, but I don't know that I use it all that often. I'm going to put it on the nice to have list. Then we have various seeds, such as flaxseed, both whole and golden. Outside of my cracker recipe, I don't know that I use these all that often. So I'm going to put both of these in the nice to have rather than must have. Chia seed is another one that I'm going to categorize as nice to have. It really depends on what recipes you're going to be making. It can be used to make some keto jams as it thickens up. You can also make chia seed pudding with it, and I did a recipe on that as well. So if those are things you're going to have on a regular basis, then yeah, chia seed. So that is pretty much the baking shelf from my pantry. I will put together a list down in the description below of those things that I think are sort of must-haves. If there's something you think is a must-have that I didn't include, let me know down in the comments below. As I continue this series, again, probably 1 episode per month, I will update my must-have, nice-to-have, and wish I hadn't purchased lists. So stay tuned for that. And thanks for watching.